Hey there, it is Dusty Thunder with one of these for you. Another spicy story. This one is titled, Am I the Astronaut for Poisoning My Roommate After He Kept Stealing My Food? So I, female 25, live with my roommate, male 27. I originally lived alone, but due to some financial difficulties, I invited him to live with me. Well, to be specific, one of my friends told me about him when I told everybody I was searching for a roommate. He was fine at first. He didn't smoke and didn't do drugs, so I let him live with me. It's a pretty basic list of...
Sorry, that was very...
You'd be like, hey, do you smoke? No. Do you do drugs? No. You want to stay with me? Maybe ask more questions, especially because this is a female inviting in a male roommate. He pays half of the rent and utilities. But we've had some serious issues lately. I work full-time late into the night, so I cook for myself before leaving for work. It was all good for a few months until recently. Whenever I came home, I noticed that my food was missing. I'd ask him about it, and he would deny it over and over again, every single time. I even started to label everything I made with my name, but my food still kept disappearing, which pissed me off. Now, for some additional context, I'm not even a huge fan of nuts. I don't crave them. I don't eat much of them at all, but my roommate is severely allergic. He told me when he came to live with me, he cannot consume anything with nuts, so I've avoided nuts in our shared space completely for the sake of his allergy. But after weeks of my food going missing and him always denying it, I just snapped. The thing is, literally no one lives here other than me and him, and he doesn't really have a lot of friends that I don't know since he joined my friend group after moving here. I know for a fact that he doesn't have anyone staying over, so it was him. Plus, I even caught him eating my food a few times, so that just shows that he's a sly pig. I remember preparing some cooked ribs for myself to reheat after I returned home from work. It was going to be an especially tiring day, so as usual, I labeled the container with the ribs and left for work. I sent him a message telling him not to eat it with a picture of the container. However, alas, the food was gone. At this point, I was so pissed that I decided I was going to mess with him. I went out of my way to buy almond powder and put it in my trap meal of mac and cheese. I gave this guy a chance to spare his life. I told him not to eat it. I even made sure to tell him, hey, that mac and cheese is mine. Don't touch it. I even sent a message with a picture of it as usual. I was being extra clear, and just to make sure everything went according to plan, I secretly set up a camera to record the kitchen. Later that night, I came back and saw that he'd eaten the entire batch. The pig was so inconsiderate that he just left the reheated container on the table. I decided to take the camera with me and decided to head out to the bar. If he hadn't eaten the mac and cheese, I would have stayed home and binged Netflix, but he ate it. So I might as well enjoy myself while he struggles with his allergy. So as expected, a few hours later, I found out that he was in the hospital with an allergic reaction. His mom used his phone to call me, being furious. She was screaming at me, accusing me of being a monster and poisoning her son by feeding him nuts. I told her that it was food not meant for him and sent her proof. I told her to read the messages I sent him, which showed the container and my reminder that he shouldn't eat it. However, his mom started berating me for being careless, asking why I would have something that he can't eat. I just responded, I told him not to eat the mac and cheese and even labeled it. I got pissed and screamed into the phone that if he can't respect that and he keeps taking my food, then I don't know what else to do. I told her that I've been very clear about this for months and that he keeps on stealing my food and denying it. She then started bullshitting, asking me if I even cared about him. I told her I didn't, because I've repeatedly told him not to steal my food. I told her that he denied it every single time and would still eat it even if I specifically messaged him not to eat it and labeled the container. I even told her I had video evidence of the whole thing. She didn't want to hear it and started crying, but honestly, I didn't feel guilty at all. I felt like this was the only way that he would learn. I tried conversations, messages, and everything else I could think of, but he could just cook for himself. How is it my fault? It's not like I put it in his food, it was mine. But everybody is calling me a psycho, but I don't get why I'm the bad guy. I specifically told him not to eat the food. His family clearly raised him to think it was okay to take things that weren't his, and now I'm the one being vilified. But at the same time, I know he's kind of broke, and he can't afford hospital bills right now, so I do feel guilty about that. So, am I the astronaut, or was it justified in teaching him a lesson about respecting my food? There is an edit. Before we get into that, thoughts. I mean, I think where OP is the asshole here is because she knew there was a high likelihood that he would eat it. She knew there was a high likelihood that her trap was going to trigger an allergic reaction. And not knowing deep, like the intricate details of his allergic reaction, like, he could have died. She could have actually.
I would have.
Yeah, I was hoping OP did say, like, there's almond powder in there, don't effing do it. Or and then be like, and from moving forward, there will be almond powder in everything that I cook to make sure that you don't steal it.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
That would have been a much better plan.
Yeah.
But not mentioning it when you knew there was a high likelihood that he would eat it means that you risked his life to make a point, and that's not okay. It's not okay that he stole your food either, but it's not okay to risk somebody's life here. You think he would eat it anyway if it had the almond powder in it?
And at that point, she's
absolved of any guilt
Yeah.
at all, because it's not.
Does it say contain nuts?
If this became a legal case, I think she would be in a little bit of trouble because she did it and then set up this whole trap so that she could prove that he did it when he wasn't supposed to, but she did that knowing there was a high likelihood that he would actually take it and eat it, and there's precedent set for that because of all the times he's done it before, right? So she knew he was going to eat it and chose to give him an allergic reaction, and that is the problem here. I'm not saying like retaliation of some kind isn't warranted here, but there are just so many better ways that don't risk somebody's life, and yeah, lock would be a good idea, or what we talked about with putting nuts in it and telling him that it's there so that my confetti laden. I'm getting deconfettied here. Yeah, I don't know. There's a much better way, and I think that OP went a little bit far. I understand the level of frustration, but you got to be able to check yourself here and be like, am I about to do something real stupid, or is this okay? So maybe you should have gone to Reddit before doing this, OP, so that people could have been like, hey, don't do that. A lawyer in the room here, not the asshole. Even if the law isn't coming after her for it, it's still not something that I could do. You know what I mean? Because now he's going to have hospital bills that originated from your malicious intent, and he's going to be like, hey, I can't pay rent these 3 months because I had to pay the hospital bills for the trick that you played. And then you're so what are you going to do? Edit! A lot of people are saying that I could get into legal issues or something for putting nuts into the food. The thing is, I made him sign a roommate agreement when we decided to live together where I specified the food is something that we will not share, including cost, and our groceries and food should not be touched by the other person. I don't think that absolves you from this. I added this because he tends to eat a lot of unhealthier food, such as delivery, while I tend to make my own food to save money. Also, to clarify, I did not consume nuts only because I was considering his allergy. When we started living together, he literally said I could eat them if I wanted, but I just didn't because I didn't really need to and I wanted to be considerate. And then later on decided to change my mind and I wanted to unalive him. Edit 2. I would respond in the comments, but there's too many. I learned that his allergy isn't that severe. I was discussing this with my friends, and one guy literally mentioned that the dude took a bite of a granola bar with nuts in it once and just used an EpiPen. In fact, apparently it's not life-threatening if he doesn't eat it in high dosages. I sprinkled a tiny bit because I was going to eat the mac and cheese myself later if it was there. I checked with my neighbors, and they literally said that his mom, they think it's his mom at least, picked him up and drove him to the hospital. It wasn't like an ambulance was called. He's literally okay, and he's texting his friends right now. His mom wants me to pay for the hospitalization, though, and I'll revisit that later. So for all the comments saying that I attempted unaliving, no, I didn't. I'm very thankful that he isn't severely allergic. He hasn't messaged me yet, so I sent him a message asking if he was okay. You didn't know that it wasn't a severe allergy until after the fact, lady. And I like how everything now is just an argument trying to protect herself. Well, I think your original post is all the incriminating evidence that's needed here, and it was a bad idea. Don't double down on it being a terrible idea by trying to justify it now and say that it wasn't wrong. That's when you become an ASCON 1. Don't do it. Don't do it. And I'm not putting you there quite yet. I'm giving you 2 for you definitely shouldn't have done this. The food stealer? I'd put him right at ASCON 2 as well. So we've got an ESH ASCON 2 situation here. No, you're right. He's 1. He's an ASCON 1
malicious.
because his was malicious intent. So was OP's. It could be an ASCON 1 all around, but I don't know. I have a little bit more understanding for OP side of things here where OP was just driven to insanity by this and was like, fine, I'll do this. But again, I think if this got into a legal issue, I think OP might be in a little bit of trouble there because they did it knowing there was a high likelihood that he would ingest it, knowing that he had an allergy, not knowing how severe that allergy was. So it doesn't look good. But as an ESH, everybody sucks here. Everybody.